Helljumpers, Chapter 20, Part 2. "Hurricane, get up!" she heard Max say as she opened her eyes. "Nap time's over, we're heading for Void in just a bit." Scootaloo nodded and detached her safety harness, stepping out of the Pelican into the hangar. Her eyes immediately drifted to an aircraft at the back of the hangar.
"Please tell me that I'm not dreaming,"
she said as a smile crept onto her face. I don't think so," Mac replied, unsure of what the Pegasus was talking about.
"AC 220.
Scootaloo simply replied, her eyes glistening.
"Where's the captain?"
she asked Mac, looking very excited. "In the op center," he replied.
"Thanks, bye!"
Scootaloo said, as she bolted away to where she believed the captain was. Weaving past any soldier in her way, she made it to the op center. She landed and stood rigidly.
"Corporal Hurricane, Captain Keys?"
she announced herself.
"Eddie's Hurricane. What are you doing here? I thought your squad was about to head for Void to hook back up with the Chief and the Arbiter."
Keys said, as she looked up from the holotable in front of her.
"Ma'am, there's a gunship in the hangar that's just sitting and doing nothing. Permission to take it out for a spin? The Chief could use that kind of firepower for air support."
Scootaloo quickly explains, the captain looking confused, and tapped into some commands into the holotable, which brought up Scootaloo's record.
"How did you get rated to fly one of these things?"
she asked as she looked through Scootaloo's record. The Pegasus snorted.
"The UNSC kept us in orbit for 2 months, and I spent most of that time in either flight simulators or in a firing range."
The captain looked skeptically at Scootaloo, but didn't question her further.
"In that case, I'm assigning you to the gunship with Private Durin. The craft will be prepped and ready in 15. Give him hell, Hurricane."
Scootaloo saluted and rushed back into the hangar, where she nearly crashed into Twilight.
"Scootaloo, where were you? We're heading off in 15 with gunship support. You need to make sure you've got all of your gear."
She picked up the Pegasus and tried to run off into the armory, and Scootaloo just flapped her wings twice and started hovering.
"Calm down, Twilight. I just got assigned to fly that gunship." "Wait, what?"
Twilight said with a blank stare.
"You're kidding me." "Nope, but I've got to go now since I need to prepare that bird."
Scootaloo said as she shot off to the gunship. She quickly entered the large aircraft as engineers were filling it up with fuel. Storing her ODST helmet out back, she switched it out for the pilot one before heading to the cockpit.
"She's ready to go, Corporal,"
Zoe called out to her as she entered the cockpit.
"Really, Starfire? I might outrank you now, but we're still friends. It's just Hurricane for you."
Scootaloo told her as she strapped into the front seat.
"Will do, Corporal,"
she said with a teasing grin. Scootaloo rolled her eyes and started the pre-flight checks. 10 minutes later, they got the all clear and lifted off. The large gunship lifting off from the floor of the hangar and slowly moving forwards towards the exit. Scootaloo took the moment where they were hovering to check the calibration on the 2 twin 30mm cannons mounted on the bottom of the gunship, while Zoe checked the missile launchers on top of the aircraft.
"Kilo 034, this is Starfire. Do you copy?"
Zoe called out to the Pelican behind her. "Loud and clear, Starfire! Over!" the pilot replied.
"Copy that, 034. Keep within the range of my guns. Starfire out."
Zoe replied as she took control of the craft and punched the throttle.
"I have more experience flying this thing, Hurricane. You take the guns."
she told the Pegasus.
"Gladly,"
Scootaloo replied. 20 minutes later, they came within sight of the city where the Covenant was digging a large hole. Zoe opened a comms channel to the Chief.
0117, this is Starfire. Be advised, gunship on standby,"
she reported, and waited for the reply. "Coordinates uploaded, Starfire." The Chief's voice came over the radio. Zoe typed in the coordinates to the flight computer and steered the craft to the Chief's location.
"Get ready, Scoots. I've got 2 pings on the ground radar,"
the pilot reported to the Pegasus.
"I see them. Engaging in 3, 2, 1.
Scootaloo counted down as they came into view of the 2 Wraith tanks that were firing on the Chief and a group of Marines. Both the twin 20mm cannons opened up on both the tanks, obliterating them before they could respond to the gunship's presence.
"Enemy armor destroyed,"
Scootaloo said as she checked the radar again. The Pelican containing Mac, Twilight, and Lucy came down to drop off its soldiers before heading off again.
"Phantom and Banshees inbounds. Chief, continue through the building. We'll mop up the rest of them over here,"
Scootaloo told the Spartan, who she could see run into the building after she closed her radio channel. Scootaloo took control of the 2 missile pods and locked one onto the Phantom and split the other to hit the 2 Banshees.
"Let's see how you handle this,"
she said as she launched the missiles. The airship groaned as the automated systems reloaded the 2 pods.
"The old bucker's just about falling apart around us,"
Zoe grunted while adjusting their altitude. The missiles hit their intended targets, making the craft that they hit burning balls of fire as they smashed into the ground below.
"Get us to the other side of the factory."
Scootaloo ordered Zoe, who immediately pushed the throttle to lift the craft over the factory and brought it into a hover on the other side. Scootaloo once again locked the missiles onto any Banshee that came near to the gunship, while she used the 30mm cannons to destroy any ghosts that attacked the soldiers on the ground, making their jobs laughably easy.
Corporal, we've got a large contact inbound on the ground radar.
Zoe nervously reported as the blip moved closer at incredible speed. The Scarab suddenly climbed over the building and dropped down into the open space behind the factory, where the chief and the other Marines were located.
Oh fuck! Initiating evasive maneuvers!
Zoe shouted as she steered the gunship out of the first barrage of plasma fire. Scootaloo redirected the 30mm cannons to fire on the Scarab, but where they had been effective previously, they now just seemed to bounce off the thick armor of the walker. The Scarab changed its secondary cannon that was mounted on top of the walker and fired at the gunship. Zoe tried to evade, but the much faster stream of plasma managed to hit the starboard engine.
Lost engine number 3, compensating with number 1.
She reported while Scootaloo checked her own systems.
Lost the second
A loud explosion rocked the craft as ammunition from the destroyed pod detonated.
Damage to all engines! I'm losing altitude!
Zoe said as she struggled to keep the gunship floating.
Corporal, Oh shit.
Zoe looked straight forward with an expression of absolute terror on her face. Scootaloo followed her gaze to where her friend was looking, and went pale herself. She was looking straight into the main cannon of the Scarab.
Scoots, you know how I said this thing was falling apart around us?
She asked as green plasma started forming on the main cannon.
My ejection seat has a malfunction. Wait, what? No, I can get you out. Unstrap yourself.
Scootaloo panicked, and Zoe shook her head.
There's no time. I'm sorry, Scootaloo. I'm not coming with you this time. Starfire out.
She said as she activated the abort sequence, and the canopy of the cockpit flew open, and the seat the filly was strapped into launched itself into the air. She could see the gunship firing off her last defiant shots just before she got hit by the large plasma turret, and its burning hulk smashed into the ground.
Zoe!
Scootaloo managed to shout as the G-forces pressed down onto her chest. She managed to bring her hoof up to her chest and detach herself from the chair. She immediately took flight down to the burning ship, completely ignoring the Scarab that had turned its attention to the Spartan, now that the gunship was down. The Pegasus landed as close as she could get to the heat of the burning craft and threw off her pilot's helmet. Tears formed in her eyes as she could see no one could have survived a crash like that. She snarled as she heard the Scarab walking around behind her and looked up at the walker.
You killed my friend!
She shouted as she flew up the upper deck. A surprised grunt threw up his arms and started running, but didn't get as far as an energy blade piercing his skull. The enraged Pegasus rampaged at the back of the craft, killing brutes and grunts alike until she reached the main core at the back.
This one's for Zoe, motherfucker!
She thundered as she stabbed the energy dagger into the core, making it spark and flicker out. Explosions starting to go off throughout the craft as the Pegasus jumped off. Twilight, Chief, and the Arbiter came running towards her as she landed.
Scootaloo, where's the— She's gone. I need a weapon.
Scootaloo cut her off, and the Chief took a shotgun off of his back and passed it to the filly. Our objective is the AA gun on the hill north of here, he told Scootaloo as he moved back into the factory. Everyone else followed him as they made their way throughout the factory, killing brutes with the help of the Marines, but just before they could leave, they ran into 2 hunters.
My energy dagger's out of juice. I can't take them out that way, Chief,
she told the Spartan, but seconds later, the loud shot of a sniper rang throughout the large hangar.
I've got them. Make them face their backs to me.
Twilight radioed as she had flown up to a vantage point. A couple more sniper shots from the Alicorn later, and the 2 hunters were down and the group could start moving up to the hill where the large AA gun was located. After clearing the site with all the present soldiers, they quickly put up a defensive perimeter while the Chief picked up a plasma cannon to fire at the energy core of the bottom of the turret. Everyone bolted from the large gun as it vented its plasma and exploded in a purple fireball. Immediately after the turret was destroyed, the remaining frigates of the home fleet alongside all sorts of smaller strike craft flew throughout the gap in the defense. Scootaloo's heart skipped a beat as she saw the battered stalwart Dawn fly by alongside the other frigates. Captain Ross had actually managed to keep the ship in one piece, even after everything it had gone through. Scootaloo's thoughts were interrupted as Admiral Hood called out over the comms. All ships, fire at will! All the Mac cannons on the frigate simultaneously started firing their rounds at the main Covenant ship that had parked itself in the middle of a structure in the large crater that the aliens had dug.
What the hell is that thing?
Scootaloo asked Twilight as she pointed at the large structure.
We were thinking it's the Ark.
Twilight replied as the shockwaves from the blasts were reaching the 2 ponies.
Oh, well, crap.
Scootaloo cursed. The large structure suddenly came to life as a circular portion of it sank into the earth, while at the same time, the large Covenant capital ship at the center of the structure shot an energy beam straight up into the sky. Scootaloo and Twilight both dropped to the floor as the magic field suddenly exponentially strengthened. Scootaloo, in a desperate attempt to rid her body of the excess magic, summoned lightning and shot it into the air. Twilight was similarly bleeding magic from her horn into the earth. Just as Scootaloo thought she couldn't take any more, she felt the magic field stabilizing to something that more or less resembled how it would be in Equestria. The radio came alive again, and the Admiral's coughing voice came out.
What did the truth do? Did he activate the rings?
No, sir, but he certainly did something.
Keys answered. Twilight looked at the sight before her, and she saw the Covenant fleet disappear into a black bubble.
It's a slip space portal,
She simply stated.
Evacuate the wounded and regroup. Wherever truth went.
The Admiral was then cut off by one of his officers.
Sir, new contact, slipping in.
A Covenant cruiser exited slip space close to the hill. Fleshy bits seemed to be hanging off the side of the hull, and flew over the group of UNSC soldiers and crashed further up into the city.
What is it? More brutes?
The Arbiter asked, but Scootaloo had already recognized what had just left slip space, just like the Chief seemingly had as he answered.
Worse.
The parasite from the Halo Ring had captured a ship. The Flood had landed on Earth. Shit was intense, but now it's going to get intense and grotesque. Oh, I can't wait. Anyway, I'd love to give a very special thank you to my non-grotesque donators. Top donator, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, Dospo, RuneScythe9852, CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Ryanny Dragonwolf, Gagi, Secret Moon, Tallrascha, The Toilet Snake, SoulDragon, Starlight Glimmer, Squidey Boy, David D. Sanchez, Trey, Dak Britton, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, James Dalton, Teal K. Anderson, and TV Killer. Thank you all very much for watching this video, live life to the fullest, and please don't get infected by the Flood. That would just downright suck.